Brian is actually asking a very good question. I am shocked. I hope he holds Corny's feet to the fire, because let's see what Corny says.
Coming up next, between Will Osprey and Kyle Fletcher.
Still, he got him. He's on point. I'm sorry, but like when Jim Cornette starts pronouncing people's names right, we're gonna have to like get him a cognitive test, because he's on point with it every single time. Osprey and Fletcher, like, damn, dude, he's the GOAT. One day he's gonna say Will Osprey and Kyle Fletcher, and then he's gonna get checked into a home the next day.
And why does Don Fallis never manage?
See, he's fine. Sharp as a tack.
Because he doesn't know how to.
Oh, come on. He's watched enough TV.
It's not that simple.
He's been around me.
Hey, there's plenty of people on that roster that watch a lot of wrestling. Look at how they are in the ring.
Well, but nevertheless, he's old enough. He could have figured it out. No, he goes to color, and there's already 3 guys over there, but he's not actively involved when his man has a match of any kind, which to me diminishes the importance of it.
Hold on.
Because I would only go over and do color when my guys were fighting job guys. And all
right. I think the reason why Don Callis is going over to commentary is twofold, right? Here's one. One, I think, is character based, and the other one, I'm going to do the kayfabe answer. Kayfabe answer, Jim, this is my answer, is Don Callis, right? Jim, you don't clearly understand the modern world of professional wrestling. It's all about propaganda. It's all about your spin out in front of people. Doesn't matter if it's a lie. All that it matters is that they hear it, Jim, and they hear it repeated over and over and over until they understand that my client, Kyle Fletcher, as you've mispronounced his name time and time again and almost got me to, is the greatest wrestler, and he is not Will Osprey. And I will repeat that time and time again as my man is in there destroying Will Osprey. There you go. That's what you do. That's the kayfabe answer, right? That's the kayfabe answer. The other answer, Jim, which I've since forgot, is, the other reason is the character reason, Jim. Character reason is because Don Callis is only interested in getting himself over off the backs of very talented, very young, and very naive professional wrestlers. Jim, he is able to utilize them to make himself relevant in the world of professional wrestling. His relevancy, he wants to continue that by being in front of the camera and having you hear his voice. That's what it is.
Make mockery of him. But nevertheless, I know their wardrobe budget must be endless also, but is Kyle's new wearing apparel, including wearing a crown, is that from somebody in a video game? What video game is that from?
I have no idea.
I think he's just foreshadowing it, as Kyle Fletcher was going to be coronated that night.
Because I mean, now he's gone from the blonde-headed kid, and then he became a heel, and he had an obnoxious blonde hair, but he was trying to put a look together, and then he was dressed like Michael Myers in Halloween one week, and then he shaved his head, and he's the king with the throne or the crown, and I don't know what's going on here. But I thought,
let's get Jim smartened up here. Well, Kyle Fletcher has been a professional wrestler, and a lot of people, he's younger, right? I think he's like in his mid-20s, and a lot of people have said he is where Will Osprey is 5 years ago, and that's been a talking point online. I'm one of those people who made the exact point. This is something that AEW does that I find interesting, is AEW understands their target demographic is a bunch of internet wrestling nerds who spend time reading stuff on the message boards, which, is probably not a successful blueprint for mainstream success, but it is entertaining to me. But having said that, a lot of people were comparing him to Will Osprey, and those comparisons made it into the storyline. They're taking a real life feeling and weaving it into the story, which I think is incredibly interesting. That's a way to take kayfabe, which is a completely destroyed concept, and kind of trying to reintroduce it to professional wrestling. I think it's a great idea, but then he shaved his head because he didn't want to be compared to him, and I think that's a good thing to do, even though I don't think he looked as handsome without his long, beautiful blonde hair. But it definitely, for me, took a talking point that I was saying and realized, like, damn, dude, they kind of nailed me on. It's it is how I felt, and now I'm more invested in a storyline for somebody who I was legitimately just putting back, taking Kyle Fletcher and saying, can't wait to see you in like 5 years when you're doing the Osprey stuff, dude. They're actively doing. He's this from this match, I think, put up near Will Osprey. Where they've expedited the time.
Thought it might be a video game.
I'm not sure. He's definitely, for someone who has his size, he's put on a lot of weight in the right way in the last year.
Say something. Nice.
He's one of the few guys on that roster that they've spent some time on. Not to say they do anything right,
but that he has actually improved his own appearance.
Yeah, and he has a look. Like, you could see him working for WWE because I think he's like 6'5" or 6'4", so he already is taller than half the roster. Well, half. He's taller than the majority of the roster. But no, I think Fletcher's, I thought he looked good with the blonde hair as a heel, but I think he's done a good job of growing into being a
6'3"
American wrestler.
Well, and that's the thing. That's what I noted. And the problem again is the way that they book other people.
And here's my thing. I don't think Brian understands the difference. Fundamentally, what is different about WWE and AEW? Yeah, Kyle Fletcher could easily go over to WWE style, no problem. But then he's gonna lose the things that are making him special. It's like getting a really, really fast car. And you got the car because it's fast. You got the car because it can take a turn, 90-degree angle, 120 miles. That's why you got it. And then you just drive it like 35. And that's what you would be doing. Because no one in WWE is wrestling like Kyle Fletcher. You need somebody who can match that energy. And to be honest, Will Osprey is the perfect dance partner for it. There are certain people who are tailor-made for WWE, and there's certain people who are not. And I don't think Kyle Fletcher is made for WWE. He could go there for sure, but that's not his thing.
They're trying to give Kyle a rub and get him over by having him beat a top guy, which the young guy beating the older established veteran who's a name, boom, brings you up. Yes, but the problem is Osprey is the closest chance that they've got at having a star babyface. And the way they've booked him since he's been there, I don't think it's just, okay, now you're just another one of the boys when he's getting beat.
I mean, your other star babyface, as soon as he's healthy, can walk through the door and is going to be a babyface is Kenny Omega. So maybe he just forgot about Kenny.
Beat by Kyle, who right now, to me, needs developmental or a territory or something for 18 months, and you could really polish him up instead of doing it every week on TV. Let's add this, take that off, and subtract this. And
what do you all think? What do you think Kyle Fletcher needs, Jim? I don't know what you think. I think he's ready.
Shave his head, and we're all watching it happen every. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Bring us the finished product after you've tried it out on the road.
That's not how things
that
work
would have
anymore,
helped him, and he'd be more polished, and he'd probably be more readier for this because he's putting the work in physically and etc., like you said. But the same thing is with later on with Swerve and Lashley. It'd be great to have this match later because God just been there for 3 weeks. But anyway, the problem is,
yeah, he's wrestling a former champion. Good way to establish your new big heel. What's the matter? He's got other people he can wrestle. It's not like we just wanted to see that match. I don't know. These guys are just, and it's what I was talking about earlier. It's just the disingenuous takes that it is LOL AEW bad. Like,
is with this match again, they're friends and they're putting it together, and nobody's going to tell them what to do, and that's why they did shit that their people would have told them not to do. They trade forearms at the bell and then start their spots at 100 miles an hour. And they're doing flips off the stairs a minute in. And Kyle does a great DDT and does great athletic moves and flips and all these big moves, and he throws punches like a girl. Things like that. If you could get in the ring with a dick
Which one? Which girl, Jim?
Murdoch, who'd make you learn one way or the other. Just a time or two. That's what helped a lot of guys. That opportunity doesn't exist anymore. But then Kyle gave Will a brainbuster on the floor at 4 minutes into the match. And bear in mind, they're going past 20. And after the brainbuster on the floor, he rolled him in and tried to pin him down with a double finger lock. Did you catch that one?
I did.
It'd be like a guy trying to run across the interstate being hit semi. And when he lands, you'd go over there and you'd come to smother him just to make sure. What the? So then, he got.
That establishes that Will Osprey is somebody you need a lot to beat. That establishes like the character, Jim. That's like he's tough. Why the violence had to keep ramping up because what Kyle Fletcher was doing was not working.
Got some heat on Osprey. But then after some heat, Osprey just came back and hit a flippy thing off the top to the floor and a forearm off the top. And then they stood there and allowed each other to chop them. I don't know how you say that sentence, to be honest with you. Allowed each other to purposely strike the other person without trying to prevent it.
They both traded unprotected chops.
And then they started doing big moves, but none of them did damage. They might both lay there and sell after 3 or 4 of them for a little while and then get up and go 100 miles an hour and never. But there's not even time for a guy to take a bump before the other guy would shrug off whatever and do his own big move. And then Osprey gave Kyle a tombstone pile driver.
Dude, these guys talked like absolutely nothing about the match. These guys talk about wrestling like they only watch clips. And I'm sure maybe possibly they watch it. Or is it like, what's what did Brian last say? He goes, I don't have concrete evidence, but I know that they're lying. Is it one of the I don't have that same moment that he has. But yeah, they sound so James, you're right. They sound so angry. James in the chat saying they sound so angry. They're so mad talking about it. Don't talk about it, guys. Dude, the people who like are watching this, I'll look in the comments. Actually, what are the comments? This is actually really funny. At that point, it says hit fast forward, it's garbage. Uncle Dave, 5 stars. It actually was 5.25 stars. Like I'm really concerned about where wrestling media is, the place that it is when, like, what did this get? This got 26,000 views, man. 26,000 people believe that Jim Cornette relevant enough to be listened to in regards to modern wrestling.
Ever on the floor. And at that point, Shivani started plugging the upcoming Continental Tournament. When people would have.
That is funny because they both, that's actually like one of the pieces of common ground. Yeah, dude, pick your ad spots. That's not a good ad spot. I agree with both of them. Wow, isn't that interesting? Though we all have vastly different opinions of professional wrestling. There's some things in professional wrestling we all go, ugh, about.
On the other channel, they would have been screaming for an ambulance and trying to kick the people out of the building for doing it. And that's why everybody's reacting to it. Over here, within 1 minute on the clock, the guy who got tombstone piled.
Look, and Jim's talking about on the other channel. On the other channel, they would have called for an ambulance and all that stuff. Yeah, Jim, those are different TV shows. I don't know if you know this, but all the wrestling is not the same, and it's all very drastically different. Like, we've established that certain things on one promotion, like a pile driver, is not as big of an issue. But when you look at it on WWE television, a pile driver is a very big problem. Okay. That's because that's how it's written. Go to any other wrestling promotion in the entire world and they do pile drivers. It's just another move. Just because WWE has said this is a special move that we've given special like damage points to doesn't mean that that's how it works in professional wrestling. WWE does not set the standard for all of professional wrestling. WWE sets a standard for WWE in that case. Okay? Like why are we acting like the rules of one universe need to apply to another one? It doesn't make any sense.
Driven on the floor was 100% and is back doing big moves at 100 miles an hour. And so they're trying to be a video game because that's their frame of reference of what is cool combat to them.
No, dude, they all grew up on wrestling. Jim, they just grew up on wrestling, dude. I don't know why you think that, like, these guys watched Mortal Kombat and they decided, I'm going to be a pro wrestler. No, dog. Will Osprey watched, like, AJ Styles matches. Kyle Fletcher probably watched AJ Styles' too, man. They're so devoid from any real knowledge that this is just, like, purely entertainment. I know Jim Cornette likes to, like, take shots at Fox News and stuff like that for their editorial pieces, but like you're the same thing.
Because they unfortunately are so young, they were not exposed to the wrestling business when they had access to numerous minds that would have told them how to f***ing do this.
They had the internet, Jim. They've had you talking at them, dude. They've had more people talking about pro wrestling than you could ever get. Jim. To learn about pro wrestling, when you learned about pro wrestling, you had to be in pro wrestling. They could listen to people talk about pro wrestling all the time. Jim, if you wanted to watch pro wrestling when you were young, you had to hope to God it was on television. You couldn't go to YouTube and just find it. What are you talking about? That's the thing. Your frame of reference and your scope is so limited because of what you had access to. And I can't be upset at people of that certain age because you didn't have access to it. I grew up when the internet new, we had unrestricted access to it, and I had a computer in my bedroom. Not a great idea for the family, fine enough idea for me. I watched a lot of things, some of it wrestling. Now, I digress. You can watch so many things from all over the world. You can get inspired in so many different ways. And Jim, I understand that you were inspired by what you saw because that's all you had. These guys had more than you. I mean, I don't think that is a foreign concept. Like, the world's changed.
And how to think about it. So if you could do something special, you can work it into the rules of the game instead of having the NCAA finals where they don't have to dribble and they can tackle the fucking guy with the ball. So then they were on the apron doing shit back and forth while the referee stared gawkedly at them. And then Fletcher gave Osprey a tombstone pile driver off the apron of the ring onto the top of the steel stairs.
Yep.
Yeah, that was a bit much considering, again, the pile driver is kind of out there right now. And not saying you have to honor what another company does, but
Bingo, Brian.
When another company puts over the pile driver the way they do, and then they do this kind of thing here, I don't know. Should one company, honor is not the right word, but honor what the other company's doing with a move like that? And
it's not even that.
No, Jim, it is exactly that. And I wonder how the Artful Dodger is going to get out of this one, but it is precisely that. Brian is actually asking a very good question. I am shocked. I am wowed that Brian is. I hope he holds Corny's feet to the fire because no, you shouldn't. You absolutely should not. Hold on. Let's see what Corny says.
It's honoring logic and the integrity of your business. And why would you do something that's that risky that also means nothing and is so phony?
What a dork. No, bad answer, Jim. No, it's not. Look, these are professionals, buddy. Every wrestling move is dangerous. You know what took Big E lengths down? Overhead belly-to-belly suplex. We ain't talking about banning an overhead belly-to-belly suplex, despite the fact that that literally took a man out of professional wrestling. Hopefully he comes back from it. No shade to anyone involved there. I just want to put that out there. But we're literally taking a move which I can't think of the last person who was hurt by a pile driver. Now, I know Steve Austin, tragically very hurt by a pile driver. I know a lot of people got hurt a long time ago. But we've been doing Canadian destroyers. We've been, Penta's been doing the Fear Factor. Steen did the package pile driver for how long? And everybody was fine. The fact that you think that somebody should have to honor, you're saying logic, which is so funny to me to even bring up in the world of professional wrestling. Like, you think that using logic. Okay, Jim, let's use logic. You know what the most contrived move in professional wrestling is? It's the vertical suplex. You want to tell me in a fight, an actual fight, you're going to pick somebody up over your head, hold them vertically with their legs up in the air, and then slam them down on the mat? What the hell are you talking about? You want to talk about using logic? A kick to the face, one super kick, one unprotected punch in the UFC is enough to end a fight. An unprotected strike is enough to end a fight in the UFC. We don't see flash knockouts in professional wrestling. So many people want to say, use logic and treat it like it's a real fight when it's advantageous for them. But if you did that, if you wanted every wrestling match to look like a fight, it would look like Shayna Baszler versus Ronda Rousey. It was interesting. Is it something I would watch every week for every single match? Absolutely not. You're watching a television show with performers who are working together. And the only stuff that you think that logic needs to be, you need to hold this to some sort of logic. It's absolutely idiotic when there's so many things we accept out of pro wrestling without question. We don't think that, there's so many things, they're so contrived, so obviously fake that we just accept. They've done Canadian destroyers on Raw. Yeah, they've done them on Raw. They've done them on NXT. I've seen Canadian destroyers to the outside. Dude, I wonder if they've ever seen Bloodsport, James. I don't know if they've ever seen Bloodsport. Because if you want professional wrestling to make sense and have logic, it would look like Bloodsport. Now that's cool, and I would be interested in going to a live one. Give me some tickets, Josh Barnett. Or GCW, whoever's running that nowadays. Just don't say anything about my dad or I can't go anymore. Anyways, I digress. Yeah, it would look like a shoot fight, and that's not what wrestling is. It's not.
And people ain't gonna remember it. I wouldn't have remembered it of all the pile drivers on the floor, except I wrote it down. But the point is, it's not honoring another company's. Remember it.
Hold on.
I wouldn't have remembered it of all the pile of the ring onto the top of the steel stairs.
Yeah, that was a bit much considering, again, the pile driver is kind of out there right now, and not saying you have to honor what another company does, but when another company puts over the pile driver the way they do, and then they do this kind of thing here, I don't know. Should one company, honor is not the right word, but honor what the other company's doing with a move like that? And
it's not even that. It's honoring logic and the integrity of your business. And why would you do something that's that risky that also means nothing and is so phony? And people ain't gonna remember it. I wouldn't have remembered it of all the pile drivers on the floor, except I wrote it down. But the point is, it's not honoring another company's rules or regulations or angles or whatever, to if you pick him up and drop him from a height on his head on metal or concrete, that he should go down and stay down for a little while. That's the integrity of the goddamn profession. Because it's stupid otherwise. And what he gave him a tombstone pile driver off the apron of the ring onto the top of the steel stairs, and then rolled him in and didn't cover him. He hit a flying knee, and then he gave him a front pile driver and got a 2 count.
Yeah, dude, he also did the cocky pin where you just hold their hands down, leaving the shoulder able to pop up. Actually, the one shoulder that Will Osprey was not actively selling them, because that was the one that wasn't injured from the tombstone. I don't think they're watching the matches.
And now it's just garbage. And as I said, that was 22 minutes in. And I
Also, Kyle Fletcher's just playing with his food. He's destroyed Will Osprey. That was the finish of the match. You get one more hope spot, and then you're getting the finish. What are you complaining about, Jim?
said, I'm done. It's horseshit. And I hit the fast forward button. And honestly, 2 minutes later, not of fast forwarding, but 2 minutes in actual time, that's where Kyle gave Osprey a brainbuster.
So look, he's actively mentioning he's not watching it. He's fast forwarding. He's missing what commentary is saying. He's missing what Will Osprey is doing when he is selling. Jim Cornette is a fraud. I don't know what to tell you guys. I don't know what to tell you. He's not watching the full match. If you're not watching a full match, why are you commenting on it? Why are you taking time out of your day to spend 13 minutes talking about a 20-minute match that you might have watched 13 minutes of?
On the top turnbuckle, and it covered him 1, 2, 3, and just beat him. So the heel beats the top babyface by not cheating.
Mid-card babyface, baby. He's a mid-card babyface. He was a former mid-card champion.
And the manager doesn't help. But in the middle of the match, they each gave and survived moves and things that were much more devastating. And then, which is kind of like, I don't know what it's kind of like. It's kind of like stupid is what it's kind of like.
Now, Jim, it's kind of like two guys who were blood feud, who used to be best friends, who are now locked in a storyline. One, because he broke free from the evil Don Callis family. The other one's still being manipulated by Don. So much so that he's turned on his own best friend, former best friend, Will Osprey. It was the type of match the story had justified. I mean, we're not talking we're talking best friends breaking up here, no longer being. This is the type of match they should be having. And this is the type of match to establish that Kyle Fletcher is a very bad guy who's willing to do whatever it takes to make a name for himself and different. One of the things that I love, the subtle storytelling, was if you've been watching any amount of AEW, you've seen Will Osprey is feeling a little afraid to use the Tiger Driver. He's a little scared. He's like, man, maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. Kyle Fletcher has always been like, bro, I'm going to hit the Tiger Driver. I'm going to hit it. If you walk ever again, I will drop you on your head. And that's what is so different about them. Where Will Osprey has been the character. They just think of them as the same character, right? They break off. And Will Osprey's like, I'm a fighting babyface champion. I'm going to do what I can. I'm a good guy, and I'm gonna make sure that I don't win the wrong way. Where Kyle Fletcher is the exact opposite side of that, and he says, I'll do whatever it takes. I'm that good, and I will win. I don't care if it hurts you. They were both the same guy. That was when he shaved his head. I am nothing like you. I am nothing like you. In this match, the moves that Kyle Fletcher uses tells the story that he is indeed nothing like Will. Or maybe I'm just making all that subtext up.
So again, there's the bubble of fans that like this kind of thing thought that this was just tremendous. And this is why that their buildings are emptier and that people are more over when they get there. And the people like the idea of them than they are 6 months later when the people have seen them do all this shit over and over and there's nothing left.
I think that is actually more concerning, Jim. Think about it. AEW books for professional wrestling fans that are, I don't want to say not casual, because there are casual fans of professional wrestling. Nothing wrong with being a casual fan of professional wrestling. But AEW has a little bit of a deeper history. You have to have some more understanding of what's going on in professional wrestling. The stories being told aren't as overt and in your face, or spoon-fed, as some people say. And it is not new fan friendly. And I understand that. And as a person who is not a new fan, I don't necessarily mind that, because it's the entertainment that I'm choosing, and I want something a little bit more from my entertainment than the base level. And the fact that Jim thinks that there's no one who's into AEW probably means there are not as many hardcore dedicated wrestling fans. There are a lot of WWE fans, which is fine. Nothing wrong with that promotion. But if you're only watching WWE, you're only supporting WWE and you're not going to your local independent shows, you're not supporting local wrestling in your community, the wrestling business isn't growing. WWE is growing, but not pro wrestling. And ultimately, that's a problem space. I think pro wrestling is better when independents are, able to run. People can go see live wrestling for not $5,000 because WWE is eventually going to be way overpriced. It's already there. Like, it's already priced a lot out. It's priced me out. And I'll be honest, like WrestleMania and Royal Rumble are going to be in Indianapolis, and I'm not too far away. And I don't mind driving up to ND. It's about an hour. I can get up there. But the problem is the price. And I'm decently well off. Like, I know where I am in my lot in life, but I can't afford that kind of money to go sit anywhere near the ring. And eventually people are going to be pushed away from WWE because they're not going to be able to go to the live events. And then what's going to happen? Are they going to fall out of love with wrestling? I hope not. That's why we really need the independents to thrive. We really need independence because pro wrestling is more than just WWE. Pro wrestling is more than just AEW. If you don't get that experience if you don't hit the experience of live pro wrestling in your area because WWE or AEW doesn't show up, if you're in a smaller town, you need those small independents. We need those things to do.
Fletcher needs developmental, like I said, for 18 months, and Osprey. You can't do a bunch of favors trying to elevate your friend when you've been diminished rather than enhanced since you've been on the television program.
Dude, you are absolutely you're eating cat food, Jim. If you think Will Osprey has I just want to take a moment and describe something to a lot of people in the wrestling space. Do you realize how many people watch New Japan? Not a lot. Americans who watch New Japan, not a lot. Most people know Will Osprey from clips. I'm gonna say that definitively. Most of you people just know Will Osprey from clips previously before he got to AEW. Now, having said that, him coming over and being on American television in front of American eyes and American audiences has made him a bigger star. Most definitely. I'm sorry, but there's only a small section of us who watch New Japan. Let's be honest. No shade against New Japan. Just most American wrestling fans do not. So A, that's already made him a bigger star than he was. Okay. B, he's going out there and having match of the year candidates like on a Wednesday. People what Osprey is viewed as, right, is one of the best wrestlers on the planet inside those ropes. Hell of a promo too, pretty good. I know a lot of people are like, well, Osprey can't cut promo. He can cut a promo. You just watch clips and you have no idea what you're talking about. Sorry. Having said that, beating Will Osprey is one of those things in this jaded day and age of professional wrestling. Still beating Will Osprey is one of those things that can make you a star. And in a world of how smart the fans are, that takes a lot of talent to have someone who can go out there and lose and make new stars. And Will Osprey is not hurt at all because of it. If Will Osprey is going to defeat, they could have, for World's End, if they made the story the way they wanted, if they could make the story, it would make sense. You could make Will Osprey go challenge Jon Moxley for the championship, and it would be believable. No one would be like, oh, he's not going to win. I mean, obviously, I think it's going to be an AEW original who defeats Moxley eventually, but you would have people out there saying, oh, okay, they're gonna have Osprey win. Osprey is good, man. I don't know what to tell you, Jim. It's a unique opportunity that they have him because what they are utilizing him for is to build what I believe is building up a crop of wrestlers for the next 5 years.
And neither one of your characters in a video game. I know you have fun, but what did we say earlier? Too many guys are having the match they want to have for the persona that they want to play instead of having a match that the fans will like and understand based on the gimmick that you're working.
I don't think anybody had a bad time watching that Will Osprey Kyle Fletcher match. Did anybody in the chat have a bad time watching that Will Osprey and Kyle Fletcher match? I thought it was great. So what are you talking about, Jim?
In who you are. and how you fill that out, whether you appear visually to look like the gimmick that you are performing. And they don't understand that.
James in the chat, I was there and on my feet. Yeah, how was the rest of the building? Was the rest of the building excited for that match? Because watching it at home, people were excited. Not only that, watching that match with my boys over at my friend Steven's, watching at my boy's house, Steven's, watching at, wow. Have another sip for the working man. The gang was over at my friend Steven's. We watched. People were excited live in the living room. I can't imagine. The building was shaking there. Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. I really want to go to an AEW pay-per-view.
They don't understand casting in Hollywood. Maybe we could put it like that. There's certain parts that certain people get cast for in Hollywood because they fit the visual image of that person, and others don't get cast in those parts because they don't look the part. That's where that phrase came from. Jump in anytime, Brian.
You know, I said this was in the middle of a string of matches where everything went 20 minutes. This went like 25 minutes. And I like these two, and I'm more tolerant of a, New Japan Dome finish or, minutes into the finish than you are. But this was too long for me. For these two in the middle of their, early stages of their blood feud. And then for me personally, once the spot on the stairs happened, I was like, this is ridiculous. And I was waiting for the finish at that point. And it took another few minutes. Because everything.
Yeah, dude, I was waiting for the finish at that point where the heel went in there and played with his food and beat up Will Osprey even more and then pinned him. You mean the dastardly heel had the win and decided he was going to inflict more damage? His opponent? Crazy. Why don't you go watch the beginning of Hangman's Swerve match from Full Gear last year when Hangman hits the buckshot lariat off the very beginning and doesn't pin Swerve? It's almost like he wanted to teach his opponent a lesson. Vengefulness. In the Swerve match, it did not work out for Hangman, his vengefulness. It worked out for Kyle Fletcher. And I'm safe to say that Will Osprey will eventually get his win back. This is something you can come back to at any time. And the fact that, that's my problem with a lot of these people talk about AEW. I can't believe they're having this match already. Dude, nothing in the world is guaranteed. Why are we waiting? Why is this whole thing first of all, AEW has hundreds of people on the roster. I know not all of them are Will Osprey and Kyle Fletcher, but you have a laundry list of talent. Look at all the great 5-star matches. Let's talk about Dave Meltzer's 5-star matches for a second. Look at all the 5-star matches that Osprey has this year with so many different talent. That's awesome. That means good matches are happening, at least in the eyes of Dave Meltzer. I think the matches have been very good. I'm not saying we have to wait. As long as the story makes sense, as long as something is going on that we can, as a viewing audience, can go, oh, okay. And then occasionally, and I'm not saying you do this all the time, occasionally, if you want to throw together a match and you just want to basically say, it's banger time, baby, with no story, you just want to have the banger match, like the even the Bryan Danielson Will Osprey match, the story was who's the best wrestler. That still works. That's still enough story. Not for everything, but for that one it was. That's fine. But if you want to get together on a Wednesday because you want to pop the boys and you throw Will Osprey out there against the Beast Mortos for fun, yeah, do it, dude. That's cool. I don't need a big ass story for that. So many things, pro wrestling as an art form can be many things, and long form stories are great. But as we've seen with WWE especially, some of these long form stories are keep going and going, and Liv and Rhea are still fighting over a boy, and it's one of you is the champion. Can you please just get it together and forget about the man? And it's been 6 months. You're broken up. Get over it. It's just you wait so long, and a lot of the times, let's be honest, the wrestling storylines have not been cooking, as they say, for an ending. You can't, like James saying in chat, you can't bank these matches. What if something happens? Yeah, business changes, plans change. That's fine. Get these matches in there. Do you know what the one thing a lot of wrestling fans do is they go through and they say, well, what if What if Magnum TA didn't get into that car crash? That's a old school reference for Jim. He would pop for that one. We talk about those things. And you know what? I hope nothing ever bad happens to any of these wrestlers, but why wait? Like, let's just have this stuff now. Let's just get in there and do the fun.
That was every match from the, for the rest of this card. I'm waiting for the finish, and it never comes, and there's just more and more and more.
It was 2 minutes later, Brian. Shut up, Crybaby.
Well,
But the other thing is,
a watched pot always rings twice.
The other thing is, I think the people there for the main card may have enjoyed this more than anything else, and that hurt everything else after this.
Well, yeah, because again, Osprey is the closest thing they've got to a babyface superstar, and everything they do is to fight against that development. But and after that, what else can you do after this? They're just people that are uglier and don't look as good physically doing the same.
Dude, he just called Will Osprey and Kyle Fletcher very hot. That's corny W right there at the end. Like, here's the thing. Cornette does not like this type of wrestling. Fine. Why is he still reviewing it? I mean, is anybody getting anything out of this besides like LOL AEW? It's just tired. It is just so tired. Look, and it's an echo chamber. This is what I was talking about earlier, right? So many people in their echo chambers just want to keep hearing the only things that they actually feel. AEW is complete horseshit. Horny keeps the company alive with this podcast. Like, look at that. Like, AEW gives any real. Like, I'm sorry. Like, it's not a fake route. Alvarez had to take Meltzer out back and hose him off after that match. Yeah, he enjoyed it, dog. Good for him. But I don't see how we have two separate people. What are you talking about?
I know some people complained that there was about that actually.
You got anything, Dave, that you talk about? I want to see this. You gonna say anything here? What are these on? Oh, here we go.
I decided I'm going to make this guy a star in
Oh,
one
we already
night.
watched that. That's my thing, man. Look, at the end of this, pro wrestling is whatever you make it out to be. But if you're going through here and you're like hate watching things to grift on the internet, man, you're a sad individual. Your material lot in life is not being made better by watching things you do. So don't do that. Please. Don't do that. Now they were too good and they ruined the show. Yeah, man. I don't get it. There's a lot of people who we're just stuck in their echo chambers, man. Yeah, I mean, that's a decent Geshta match and the Ricochet match should have gone on first, to be honest. Oh, here we go. Someone's talking about the star rating from. Yeah, these guys are just. I'm sorry. Like, this is a sad group of people. Like, if this is what you do all day, if you're this or you're gorilla position wrestling on TikTok, like, you're a sad individual, man. I wish the best for you. Like, we have different feelings on the art form, but you're still a person. Like, I hope the best for you. This is just disappointing. All right, speaking of disappointing, that's going to be the end of the show tonight. Hour 42 minutes, 4 seconds. Good job. Who was here now being involved in another episode of The Gimmick? We appreciate that. Hey, I want you to go this page and watch this video. Here's a minute. Stream. Newsflash, fancy people like pro wrestling too. So it makes sense that some people that walk the red carpet for a living also consume the content of the Squared Circle. Now, no shade to my boys, the Costco guys and the Rizzler. Pro wrestling really has no shortage of A-list talent. On this episode of The Countout, we look at the most interesting celebrity involvements in professional wrestling, including some wild cameos and even a walk through the Hall of Shame celebrity wing. My name's Michael, and welcome to Suplex. RoboCop. Early 90s WCW was a weird and lawless place, so much so that there was only one man, or should I say cyborg, not want to come off as robophobic, fit to clean it up. In the year 1990, WCW ran a show called Capital Combat: The Return of RoboCop, a WCW event that was a promotional tie-in with the 1990 film RoboCop 2. And you'll never guess who showed up. Oh, said RoboCop. Yeah, it was wrong. I'm not sure who wrote the storyline, but I am sure the Hat Man must have been in the room. They decided RoboCop was going to save Sting by running off the Four Horsemen. Fun fact, this show also included a match where a young Undertaker, managed by Teddy Long, wrestled Johnny Ace, meaning going one-on-one with the Undertaker player goes back over 30 years. I digress. I just want to say thank goodness for RoboCop coming to the aid of...
I watched it. Don't be mad at me.
Yeah,
So make sure that you guys are checking out that video. It would be a big help. I spent a long time editing this, and I'll be honest, it's only got a few views, and it's better than it's getting views for. It's one of my favorite things I've made. So go ahead and go check that out. I appreciate you all. As always, make sure you are subscribed to this page. Go check out this video. Handsome guys saying some funny things here. At least I think they're funny. Tell me what you think. If you don't like them, tell me in the comments. I'm cool with that. But it's time to head out tonight. I just want everybody to know it has been a great long tomorrow. And I want you to take the opportunity to appreciate if you had some time to rest and read. Over the holidays, there is 30 more days until the end of the year, and that means you know why you should do something great, though? It's because pro wrestling is predetermined. Your life isn't. Go do something great today. We'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for checking out this free video. If you don't mind, please click like and subscribe.
Kyle Fletcher versus Will Osprey. This is a good example of where the crowd knew exactly who they hated and who they loved and who they were supposed to cheer for, and cheer for that man they did. They loved Will Osprey. They hated Kyle Fletcher, and that's just about that. So very early on, Fletcher tears the kinesio tape away from Osprey's neck, hits a mighty, mighty brainbuster on the floor. We see these sometimes, the guys, kind of drop to the ass and roll. The guy taking the move as a somersault. This looked like it felt awful for both men involved. Super violent floor brainbuster. Every time Will gets a hope spot, Kyle targets that neck, smacks him in the neck, or drops him in the neck, or whatever. Really making the neck the emphasis. They start trading chops.
James, you're right. This is better than Dave because Dave doesn't have any juice. I was looking for Dave Meltzer clips talking about this. I couldn't find any. If you got any, let me know.
The crowd loves this machismo, but Kyle suckers him into a super kick instead. He's a dick. They take turns countering everything. Fletcher gets a last ride for 2, and this place is going crazy. And I say crazy. Will keeps trying the Oscutter. Kyle keeps blocking it, and so Will goes to option number 2, a tombstone on the floor, which in fact sets something up even later. They're having this awesome match, and then something very annoying happened that is not the fault of either guy involved. They suddenly say, hey, Continental Classic starts Wednesday. Stay tuned to social media and Selection Sunday when we will announce the participants in this tournament.
Pretty vague.
That sucks.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to spend my... In fact, I haven't. It's been all day Sunday. I have not paid attention to AEW social media.
Well, they've been released. I haven't seen them yet.
I haven't seen one.
Yeah.
And didn't even watch the show. Didn't occur to me to check. Back to the match. It's awesome. So Will's getting desperate. He starts fighting dirty. He's slapping and smacking Kyle on the apron. Tries a Stormbreaker out there, but Kyle...
He does a really good job of highlighting the big points of the match. I just wanted to point that out. He's doing a good job of giving a play-by-play for those who weren't there and giving us the feelings.
Kyle turns into they had pulled the stairs next to the ring, and Kyle grabs Will, jumps off the apron, does a jumping tombstone onto the stairs. And they made this count. And it wasn't like a stretcher angle, which would have been 40 years ago. But this was really the point that
It wasn't a stretcher angles. That nice dig, Vinny. It wasn't a stretcher angle, which they would have done 40 years ago.
match ended, if we're being honest. Kyle refused to go, but this count. And it wasn't like a stretcher angle, which would have been 40 years ago. But this was really the point the match ended, if we're being honest.
True.
Kyle refuses to win by countout, throws Will back in the ring, does a kneeling pile driver where one of Will's arms is just hanging totally loose, just hanging limp in the air, drops him on his head, but still kicks out. Fletcher laughs this off. Osprey tries another comeback. He hits the hidden blade, but there's absolutely no juice behind it. Fletcher no-sells it. Osprey collapses. And finally, after no-selling a few more...
Wait. I thought Osprey didn't sell anything, and that's my problem. That's a problem that I have with like people who talk this talking point. I'm gonna talk directly to you, Cameron. If you're one of these people out here who believe that Will Osprey does not sell, not know what you're talking about, or you're watching internet clips, if you're watching just to fire up the hope spots, if you're just watching the fighting spirit spots of Will Osprey on TikTok, and you're seeing from disingenuous people who just say, Will Osprey doesn't sell. Dude, Will Osprey is one of the best sellers on the roster. The ending of this match, Will Osprey puts the pro in pro wrestler. I'm sorry, but he's literally selling the entire damage on his neck because he's saying my arms are I have no longer feeling in my arms. I'd use my strike, the hidden blade. I cannot use my finisher because my neck has been ravaged from so many things. Buster on the floor, tombstone pile driver on the stairs, and then later for the finish of the match, a brain buster on the turnbuckle. Look, Osprey doesn't have the feeling in his arms, and then when Fletcher gets attacked with the hidden blade, there's no juice behind it, as Vinny was saying. And then Fletcher takes that arm, gives him an arm breaker over the shoulder. Will Osprey's got no weapons left. And people are going to say, well, why wasn't he stretchered out? That should have been the end of the match? Yeah, as Vinny said, it was the end of the match. They just went in. And at that point, Kyle Fletcher is playing with his food. Now, Osprey does get a kick out. He does get a hope spot in there. But yes, that is good. I like that. And I think you do too, because it gives you one moment for a split second. You believe, oh my God, Will Osprey is going to pull it out. And those are the moments of pro wrestling that we love so much. But that's not the conversations that we have about pro wrestling. The conversation we have about pro wrestling is Will Osprey doesn't sell. Look, going into 2025, you see anybody say that, they don't know what they're talking about. Just tell them you don't know what you're talking about. Flat out, do not know what you're talking about. I'm sorry. And James says it perfectly in the chat. You can tell who really likes wrestling and who doesn't. And that's the case. You have so many people who are just so pedantic and boring about their wrestling takes. Well, this is a quarter hour for Raw over the quarter hour for AEW, and that means Raw is indeed better. No, dude, that's not how you talk about media. You talk about the way things that make you feel, and I'm not sitting here and say you're wrong for liking a show, you're right for liking a show. You like what you like for the reasons that you like it. But also, if you're spending all your days or you're spending social media time, okay, I want to call somebody, right? Where is my, what's his name? Philip? What is his name? He's in my For You page, like every fifth one. Oh wait, I liked something. I liked something earlier from him. I probably have. Where are you? Profile. I have to have liked something from. Damn, dude. He posts really terrible stuff. Anyways, there's this guy. And all he does is post like clips of AEW out of context and then like post where the best wrestle. And it's my pet project for the rest of this year and next year to I don't think that person is happy in life. And I don't think pro wrestling is the best thing for them. I want to reframe their pro wrestling take. That's why I have started the pro wrestling re-education camps. But it's crazy. It's crazy to me to see all these people who dislike pro wrestling so much and are just like actively still taking in certain pro wrestling. But if you don't like it, you don't have to take it. And I'm not going to force you to do that. But also don't show up to other places and say, "Yo, I need you to understand that the thing that you like is not good." Like, you ever seen that TikTok? You've seen the meme where like there's a group of people talking and, "Oh, I love this thing," and then there's like one person on the outside of the group yelling to them saying, "The thing you like sucks," and then like someone from the group gives them like a big thumbs up, and then goes back to talking in the group. That's exactly who you are in the world of professional wrestling. When you're coming to the table, you're going to spaces where people are specifically talking about a particular type of wrestling and complaining about it. You're a dork. I'm sorry. Like, that's not how, like, go to a real wrestling show. Like, go to a wrestling event. No one talks like that there. If you go to a wrestling event, like if I went to Monday Night Raw, somebody I was near was like, "Wow, they really sold out the building. This is a really good indication on how good the story is because there's so many people here." No, dude, shut up and watch the thing in front of you. Dorks. Any narrative grab collect? You're right. Yeah, whatever the narrative. Like, there is not a insignificant part of the population who wants to see LOL AEW bad, and they'll go see it. They want confirmation bias, and that's my problem with a lot of people. Is there's so much confirmation bias. There's so many people who just tune in and they're like, "I want to find a creator who shares my same opinions on things." And when they find that creator, they're like, "Great, I agree with everything they say," and they just prop my opinions up so I know that I'm right. It's wrestling. It's all subjective. It's art. There's no one whose feelings are right about art. Just like, people got to realize that.
Two more things.
Reset.
Fletcher does 2 big running kicks in the corner. The El Generico brainbuster. He makes a cover, and the referee counts to 3.
Yes.
Kyle Fletcher pinned Will Osprey clean.
Not only pinned him clean, dude,
Destroyed him.
he beat the shit out of him.
Yeah.
This was the singles.
I'm sorry. These guys seem like they're having a more fun conversation about it so far. One thing about wrestling, if you're, Roman in the chat says he's never wrong about wrestling. One thing about wrestling, it's never wrong. That's damn right, dude. All wrestling's good wrestling. I've never left a wrestling show and been like, "Man, I wish I went to work instead." Come on, dog.
Match version of the Young Bucks and Private Party. It was just a guy decided, "I'm going to make this guy a star in one night.
Yep.
I'm going to put him over like crazy." In an incredible match. And it had the best heat of anything on the show. Maybe with the exception of Big Boom, AJ, and QT. But honestly, this had better heat. And I just watched it, and
Right. And that's what I want to point out real quick to those people who just complain like AEW doesn't have any good stories. Where do you think this heat comes from? Where do you think the heat developed in the story? Do you think that it just was materialized for fun? Do you think that everyone was handed like a little card when they went into the arena and they're like, remember, be mad at Kyle Fletcher? No, dog. They watch the TV show. They understand what's going on and they reacted to it. And that's what I don't understand. There's people who are like, AEW doesn't tell any stories or have any stories. That's not how pro wrestling works. When have you ever, and I'm even talking about like Prime ROH too, had stories. Granted, it was a lot of like LOL good wrestling. Like, I loved it. That's cool. But pro wrestling always has stories. And when you're one of these people out there who say AEW doesn't have stories, you're showing again that you don't know what you're talking about. And I know there's a media literacy problem in this country. And I know there's a media literacy problem with people of professional wrestling, talking heads included, some of the people we're listening to today. But it never ceases to amaze me how basically we're just like lemmings, right? We will just continue to follow and blindly believe other people to our detriment, and it becomes such an ingrained feature. Like, these people who think like AEW doesn't have stories and Will Osprey doesn't sell and WWE can't do good wrestling, like those beliefs that some of those people have are so deeply ingrained in what they hold true, to say the opposite would shatter them from the inside out. And that's such a weird relationship to have with wrestling. Like, just take a second and just look at this. This is a television show, folks. If you have like this deep feelings about a television show, just take a break. Take a break, man. It's not healthy. Roman in the chat. They have stories. Some of them aren't very good, but they have them. Yes, and that's just pro wrestling, man. Yeah, pro wrestling stories.
When it was over, all I could think was Kyle Fletcher needs to beat Okada in the finals of the Continental Classic
Ooh.
and win that tournament. And like, it's time for him to be the man. And I learned moments ago on the chat that Fletcher and Okada are in the same block.
Ah,
So you still get the match, Brian. It won't be the finals, but you'll get the match though. James in the chat says, I think fans of any wrestling talking about good stories have never read them. Yeah. Hey. Not me. I have many book right here. Titles, because you won't get to see them, but look, there's books. Look, I agree, James. I agree wholeheartedly, because even television, even like other television, like take a wrestling story, and if you were watching it as a weekly episodic show, i.e., like sitcom, like I don't know what's this show now. Designated Survivor's not a thing anymore. We've been watching a lot of Designated Survivor on the free TV channel. You wouldn't say any of these stories are like captivating to tune in every week. I think that they're fine, they're good, but most of it is the wrestling. You have to remember, like the big aspect of it. All these storylines are revolving around the match, and the stories aren't great. They're just not. Like I know people would say this is cinema. Wrestling is cinema. Not as far from it, but it's good for wrestling standards, which is fine. Like you can enjoy stuff in its box. Like not everything has high art. You can enjoy this. Like you can enjoy camp. You can enjoy like satire, which this is what I believe pro wrestling is. WWE is trying to turn their segments into movies. Yeah, I know, and that's another thing that I dislike. Like one of the things I love about pro wrestling is the live theater aspect. We're moving away from the live theater aspect and moving more towards the cinema. We're moving more towards the movies. Like for example, Punk and Roman Reigns having their face-to-face the other day in a pre-tape. Back in the day, we would just do pre-tapes for like people like we don't necessarily know if they're going to be able to get the promo out. I know Roman Reigns and CM Punk and Paul Heyman can all talk. I know that that's not the reason they're doing that. They're doing it for a different feel. But I want the audience to be able to react to that live, feel the energy of these performers in front of them, not watching it on a screen in an arena. Because guess what? I paid $750 to sit near the ring at WWE, and I wanted to see it live and in front of me. And if I wanted to watch it on a screen, I'd just watch it at home. Yeah, no camera movement. That's right. Don't get me started on it.
Because of course they are.
an issue.
So anyway, you got to follow this up, dude.
Yeah.
This was awesome. An incredible match.
Mm-hmm.
Everything they do, they're like, Kyle Fletcher's now at the level of like, we're talking when Osprey and Kenny Omega, there are two guys where you can imagine any move in the world, they'll do it. It's like a video game.
Yeah.
I want this person to do a jumping tombstone off the apron onto steel steps. Okay, we're going to do it. All this shit they can do. And not only that, it all looks amazing. Like that brainbuster on the floor, it's picture perfect. I mean, you couldn't have done a better like every move. I said this about Will Osprey. Like,
dude, he's so right. He is so right about the video game thing, and it's like another thing in my life that I really enjoy, and that's skateboarding. Like a few years ago, it got to and I'm sure you all played the EA Skates back in Tony Hawk game. It got to a point where like, in Tony Hawk or Skate, you would like grind up a handrail and you're like, yeah, that's goofy. It's silly. But like, then we got to a point where people were like grinding up handrails and you're like, what? And then we got to like, people would do like tray flip, back tail, like big flip out or like big flip out. And you're like, on a video game, like, oh yeah, who could you imagine, you know? And then people are doing that kind of stuff. You're like, what? Like the generation that is now in charge of things, like in regards to like pop culture, had access to the internet, so they could see everything they could ever have wanted, and been inspired by so many things that the previous generation could not have literally could not have been inspired by because they didn't have access to it. And now these people are like, yeah, wouldn't it be sick if we did this? And they're like, well, has anybody ever done that? They're like, no. And they're like, cool, we'll figure it out. Like, I love that aspect about pro wrestling. That's what's so interesting to me about their performance. We're constantly pushing what is the realms of possibility. And maybe one day we'll get to the point where I'll say, like, that's too much for me. I don't like that. And you know what? That's it. That's fine. That's just not my personal taste. Now, having said that, Jim found his in 1986. Alvarez still hasn't found it yet. It doesn't seem like, but we'll see what he's got.
Like over a year ago. It's like the thing about Osprey is,
oh, by the way, they gave him this match 5.25 stars.
he does all sorts of moves. Lots of other people do the same moves he does, but every move he does it better than anyone in the world.
Yeah.
And Fletcher is like, I mean, he was right there with him the entire time. This was just incredible. This is the best thing on the show by miles.
So you mentioned the important thing is the follow-up here.
Reggie, shout out to you. I do love my suitcase. James in the chat saying, older guys hate the video games. I should be jumped over that car.
And what they should do with Fletcher in the tournament and all that.
Because he's all Kobe. Dude.
Is Will Osprey ever going again to be like a real, honest-to-God AEW main eventer?
No, someday.
He had one title shot against Swerve. He lost and has been, I mean, it's not like he's disappeared or been buried or anything, but it just feels like every time they should pull the trigger on him, they don't. And all right,
I totally disagree. I don't think Will Osprey should be anywhere near the top of AEW at this time. He signed to a few years of a deal. He'll get there eventually. You don't need to run and tell that story. Like I don't like this knee-jerk reaction to like Will Osprey is the best wrestler on the planet. I agree. But like we don't have to write him that way. We don't have to write him to be the champion of the world, because once you get there, right? And this is what WWE is realizing with Cody right now. Like it's what did the Joker say in the Dark Knight? He's like, I'm just a dog chasing a car. I don't know what I would ever do if I caught it. And I think that's what's happening to WWE, because Cody, they did the chase the whole time, built to it wonderfully, and then the moments they had at WrestleMania in what was, I think, is essentially a cinematic live match, which is cool. That was interesting to see. So many like little cameos and moments is like in game, which is nice. I like that. It's fun. But now Cody's a champion. And babyfaces are harder to write as a champion. And Cody Rhodes is a babyface. I think, luckily, AEW has not written themselves in the corner where Osprey couldn't be a heel champion. I think you could easily do that. Absolute power corrupts, absolutely. And I don't think Tony's worried about selling Will Osprey as a John Cena-like character, like I believe WWE would be. So have him win the championship, but not right now. You can use Will Osprey to every title and establish an entire generation of stars like he did with Kyle Fletcher here. He can continue to do that because Will Osprey's name's value. I'm not saying job Will Osprey out to make the next generation, but I am also saying have Will Osprey lose to some people to help make the next. You can also at the same time build him up. I don't think anyone's going to look at Will Osprey as like a jobber ever. But if he can put more people over and make more stars, that's what's going to cement W.
I mean, do you have a plan with Moxley?
I do not think the plan is Will Osprey and Jon Moxley.
Yeah.
Will Osprey would be a perfect person to beat Jon Moxley, but the problem is the Jon Moxley story is that it has to be somebody from day one.
Okay.
It has to be an AEW original, and that is not Will Osprey.
Yeah.
So for the time being, Osprey needs to do something else.
He's just treading water.
So he's feuding with Kyle Fletcher.
Yeah. Which will be more great matches, so that's cool.
Great.
Mark Davis runs out in his latest wacky street clothes ensemble to check on Will. And I thought he was doomed, but Fletcher and Callis just walked away. They did not interfere with him at all.
Thank you for watching.
All right.
Make sure you subscribe to the channel.
All right, now we get to Cornette. What did Cornette think about it?
Wrestling needs chaos at times, but there has to be reason for it. On
Well,
this
then
show, there's no
again-
reason.
Yeah, I did. Your James is right. He says I like the vibes, but they're too nerdy. I know, but it does remind me of actually talking wrestling with, because
when you talk about nerdy wrestling stuff, like people get really nerdy about it. I'm one of them.